Today is an auspicious day. That was so sharp that like I'm not even trying. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Screen Tested. I am your host Tyrant, and in today's episode we have Glamdring, Gandalf's sword from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now obviously this is my favorite sword in all of the Lord of the Rings. I've mentioned it before. We've done a couple of episodes where we've actually taken a look at the Lord of the Rings sword design, seeing if they're practical, seeing if they're functional. So having one here in the flesh is really cool because this is a battle ready sword. This is made out of spring steel, full tang, so we can actually cut with this, we can swing this around, we can hit things with it. So let's find out if Glamdring is a really good sword design. Spoiler alert, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Now this one was sent to me by Swordia for around about $270 US. I've been really happy with the quality of Swordia's stuff, you know, spring steel stuff. They're doing a lot of European stuff, and they're also getting into, you know, movie replicas and game sort of replicas. So there'll be a link down below if you actually want to pick one of these up, because you can just buy one of these. With that out of the way, let's get started with today's episode. So Gandalf's sword Glamdring, or foe hammer, belonging to the previous king of Gondolin and found in a troll cave. Now the reason why it's my favorite of the Lord of the Rings swords is because you have a lot of individual pieces that when you put them together, you have this very elegant, fanciful, don't know if that's a word, sword design that I absolutely love. First off, we have somewhat of a scent stopper pommel, one of my favorite pommels. We have a slightly sweeping up crossguard, and then a very subtle leaf blade, not over the top. So when you put all these elements together, you have a very elegant design that doesn't look out of place at all. It looks exactly how I would imagine a kingly elven sword to look. That's why it's my favorite. Today is an auspicious day. I don't know if that's the right word, don't really care either. This here is, like I said a little bit earlier, a fully battle-ready Glamdring. This, I cannot explain how long that I have wanted one of these things. Now, there's a couple of things we should mention. First off, obviously this one is from Swordia, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, and they have been knocking it out of the park lately with all of their like battle-ready European swords. I'm a really big fan. Not only do they have a bunch of, you know, spring steel blades that are battle ready, but they also have these awesome tangs, because obviously, you know, sometimes you can get tangs on blades that are pretty much shit. That hasn't been the case, at least in my experience. Now this one is obviously Glamdring. Now I think it's a pretty good replica. Now there's a couple of little caveats here if you're looking for like a full, you know, Glamdring Gandalf sword replica. This one isn't 100% accurate. Obviously this here is a black kind of colored leather handle, if we want to call it that. I don't actually think this is leather, but it's a black handle. On the actual Glamdring, it is a blue one, so you're going to have that little bit of variability. Obviously some of the details on the crossguard, the pommel, things like that, it's not 100%. because it's a battle-ready sword. But obviously what matters most is the blade itself. Because we have that spring steel blade and it's sharp, it means that we can actually cut with it. So if we take something like a regular longsword, this one here in particular is my feather. This is a custom feather that I have modified myself. Now the balance on this, I would consider perfection. It is a literal perfection. The tip control on this is gorgeous, and I'll actually show you exactly what I'm talking about. And the reason why is because we have a pommel to counteract the tip, so it means that we have nice fine tip control. That's kind of what I want from a cruciform longsword, right? It's because we have that swell. It means that we're moving that mass up towards here, which means our tip control is going to be a little bit more sluggish, right? Which is kind of the opposite with what I would want with my longsword. And to give you a nice visual example of this, if we hold the blade here and I start to move it side to side, kind of where I would hold it if I was, holding the sword regularly, we'll be able to see how much play we have in that tip. Like, it's not terrible, but you can see how much extra wobble we have with that blade tip. Now, let's have a look at my feather. So if we have a look at that tip again, it's like a gyroscope. So that there is perfect tip control. So when I actually hold the blade right, my tip is always going to pretty much be on point. And that's why I find the leaf blade longsword, the Glamdring, such an interesting concept, like a fantasy sword, right? Because usually when we have these leaf blades, we're not going to have them this long. And even then, the swell it's not that pronounced. It's rather subtle. You can still see it, obviously, but it's a little bit more subtle than a regular leaf blade sword. So let's cut some things. That's enough of me fucking waffling. I've been waiting for this. Let's cut some shit. Like, the tip on this is gorgeous for thrusting, right? Because it's kind of, it's definitely like a diamond cross section. I am a big fan of it. It means that we're going to have quite an aggressive tip while also maintaining a lot of structural rigidity, especially in the thrust, right? So, that is, that is special. It's not as sharp on this tip though. If you're enjoying today's episode, you should really consider subscribing. I mean, I have a saw shield. I mean, I have a twin blade here. But if a twin blade isn't enough, I also have a trident. This is the type of content I do, along with giant swords and a whole host of other stuff. So if you like these sorts of things, you should consider subscribing. All right, so one side is a little bit sharper than the other on the swell here, because obviously that's where I'm gonna wanna be cutting, right on the swell. Yeah, not as sharp. I tried another one, but it's not sharp. Leaf blades are really hard to make. There's such a complex geometry here. They're really not like most other swords. There's a lot of complex curves here. There's a lot of complex grind work here, especially getting like consistent, curves and transitions. So they're really hard to make, first of all. And on top of that, you don't really get that much of a benefit, right? Now, the reason why I personally love something like a leaf blade, right? Like Glamdring, the reason why it's so, I'm infatuated with it so much is because it gives me a lot of cutting power, similar to something like, let's say, maybe a katana or a machete. Maybe not as aggressive as both of those. It's a similar sort of concept, right? Where we're gaining a little bit more cutting power because we're moving some of the mass here. But at the same time, we still have incredible thrusting, and because this is kind of in a long sword configuration, if we want to put it that way, it still does have quite good, tip control and balance and movement. That chops wood like a monster. Man, that's that tip though. Like, that swell is a beast in the hands. Just before we finish out, let's very quickly test the thrusting on this. Obviously, we have Tony here. I know he's got a little bit of different headgear. That's for something else. But let's see if we can thrust through. This is just a regular gambeson, my old gambeson. Let's just see how this tip actually holds up, because I got a feeling it's going to be pretty good. I hit the core. That was so sharp, that tip, it blasted through that felt like there was nothing there. There was no resistance in the slightest. It thrusts good. Thrusts good. So maybe you guys can see that on camera a little bit better. But like, I'm not even trying. I'm not even trying. Look, f off, Tony. That was nothing. I barely even put any effort or energy into that. So what are my final thoughts on Glamdring? Honestly, this thing was a whole bunch of fun. It is a beautiful, beautiful sword. Now, I think it is completely fair to give this a rating. We have rated other fantasy style, pop culture swords before, namely Rurouni Kenshin's reverse edge katana, the twin blade, etc., etc. So, without further ado, let's get into Tyrant's initial thoughts, score, or tits for short. So, starting off with comfort. Truthfully, 10 out of 10. it handles exactly like a regular longsword. Now, something that we should mention and is really important is these sorts of rankings and ratings, the perfect 40 out of 40, you know, the prime example, what we're trying to reach is, for example, where we're looking at longswords, so it would be just a regular longsword. A regular longsword is a perfect 40 out of 40. Honestly, this is going to get probably that. I mean, it's basically a regular longsword. There are a couple of quirky things, but for the most part, it is a regular longsword. So, comfort, 10 out of 10. It's really comfortable, it's really fun, and it's reasonably lively in the hand. So, next up, wieldability. Like, maybe I could deduct 1 point if I was really feeling petty about it, because we have kind of that competing concept, right? We have that leaf blade with the counterbalance. That's kind of the opposite of each other. They kind of cancel each other out, right? But the truth is, because this is a rather subtle leaf blade, it means that it still handles kind of like a average longsword. That's how I would describe it. It handles like an average longsword. So even an average longsword in this particular category, which is longswords, gets a perfect 10 out of 10. Next up, design. Okay, this one here might have a little bit of bias in it. And the reason why is because a lot of the design aspects of this blade are personally my favorite aspects of the blade. Like, it's what I use on my actual feta. We have essentially like a very similar to a scent stopper pommel. That's my favorite type of pommel because it's so practical and useful. In terms of the handle, personally, I'd probably go with something a little bit different. You guys know I like my octagonal handles, but this one is still perfectly comfortable and functional. And then when it comes to the crossguard, my favorite type of crossguard is a very subtle, slightly sweeping up crossguard. So again, in terms of the design, 10 out of 10. Next up, effectiveness. I mean, I think the results speak for themselves. This is a battle-ready sword. It can cut, it thrusts like a monster, and it would be functional. 10 out of 10. So that gives us a final score for the first time, a 40 out of 40. And it's not just because it's my favorite Lord of the Rings sword, okay? It's just a really good fucking sword. And the truth is, we're probably gonna get some more pop culture swords. They're probably gonna get some really, really high scores because there's nothing really inherently wrong with them. It's just little subtleties here and there. It's usually the really wacky, you know, pop culture weapons that get lower scores because they're just so shit, for lack of a better word. But that is going to be all for today, guys. I genuinely hope you enjoyed. Check out the link down below if you want to pick up one of these battle-ready swords from Swordia. 270-ish, somewhere around there, dollars. Really good price. I like Swordia stuff. Tangs are awesome, blades are awesome, fit and finish is reasonably good, especially for the price point. But that's going to be all. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'll see you next week. Have a good one. This thing is fucking sick.